Let's go through putting together a graph on Excel. You really need to have the downloaded version of Excel because the online version of Excel won't let you do linear fit lines. It won't let you do regression lines. So you really need to have that downloaded version. Okay. First thing is to get the data into the spreadsheet. What you want to do is pick one column to be your X variable and the very next column to be your Y variable. And yes, I know I misspelled it. For Boyle's law, we have volume in milliliters, and we have pressure in millimeters of mercury. Now we can just go ahead and add our data. I find it personally easier to input the data for each column separately. So I'm going to put in all of my volumes. And all I'm doing is hitting the enter key between my data points to move me down. It is much like Microsoft Word. You move, left click over the cell that you want. 1377, 4, 8. Okay, now that's all the data that I have. Now I'm ready to go ahead and put together a graph or a chart, as Excel likes to call it. Highlight, so left click, hold down the key and select all your data. Then go up to Insert, come over to Charts, and we're going to want to go for a scattergram. You can go for a scattergram with smooth lines. That's totally fine. So with the data points in, and there I go. There is my graph. We need to add a few things to it. We need to add in titles and labels. To do that, on the right-hand side of this graph, there's this little plus symbol, and that just means to add in chart elements. I'm going to left click. I want axis titles, and I want my chart title. Okay. So now I can go ahead and get rid of that. To do my chart title, I'm going to select, and then I'm going to click again. And I can just click and drag to highlight. And now, whatever your little heart desires. Boyle's law. Let me get that out of the way. There we go. And I can just grab the edge of that text box. I can highlight and shrink the font size down. I can get it to be on one line. And now the axis titles, it's the same thing. I'm going to click on it to select, click on it again to get the cursor. And now just edit. So this is pressure. And my pressure was in millimeters of mercury. And coming down here. We've got volume, and that is in milliliters. That's my first graph. If you'd like, you can select the whole graph. Make the graph just a little bit smaller. If you want, you can add, come here. You can add in your trend line just to show, look, this relationship really is not linear. It is most definitely not linear. And if you recall, I said one of the things we need to do is to get this function linearized, because then we can compare the constant that you calculated to the constant from the graph. So the next graph you're going to make is actually 1 divided by your volume. And you could go ahead and abbreviate it. So 1 over vol, and that's 1 over milliliters. And we still have pressure is still in millimeters of Hg. Rather than type all of this data back in, I'm just going to select it, Control C, and then Control V. There's my data. With the 1 over volume, you are most certainly welcome to go ahead and do that calculation, or we can get the spreadsheet to do it for us. I want the value in my cell equal to, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit the equal sign. And the function I want is 1 divided by 5.7. And if you notice, instead of 5.7 showing up, it's A3. A3 is the cell designation for my 5.7. Hit enter. There's my value. I can copy and get the rest of the data. Well, if you noticed, all I did was come over and get my little plus sign. Okay, you don't want the arrows, you want just the plus sign. And drag it down for your whole list. Select your data, insert, chart, move it down a little bit. I want my axis titles, and I also want a trend line. Let me slide over here just a little bit. So I want my trend line. I want it to be linear. Oh, I want it to be linear. But I also want to have the equation for the line. I'm going to come down to more options, select that, and down at the bottom under Format Trend Line, display the equation. And then I can do the R squared. That just shows me how well the data fits to the actual trend line. So if you're above a 0.99, you're doing really well. I'm fine if we don't actually have that. The other thing I like to do is I like to forecast. So I'm going to go ahead and put like 0.1 and see what that does. Okay, it just adds, extends that line just a little bit. That's too much. So 0.02, and let's go backwards. 0.01. There we go. Now with this one, I probably will go ahead and play with the scale, because I have a bunch of empty space on both sides. So I'm just going to click on that axis, and it's got Format Axis. Next options, Axis Options. And my bounds say, hey, we're going to go from 0 to 0.25. Well, let's go from 0.02 or 0.03, and let's stop. There we are. See how that data, once we just shift the bounds a little bit, it just fills more of your graph. Now we'll come up and you can, same way, select and type your chart title. Same thing. If you double click it, you double click on the chart title, it automatically brings up, lets you do the processing. So maybe Boyle's law, pressure versus 1 over volume. I personally like to see a little bit more detail with my titles. So this is still pressure. Meters of mercury. And down here, oh, that's right. That's 1 over volume. Volume. And that is 1/ml. Second graph done. Third graph is going to be very, very similar. This case, though, you know you're going to graph the temperature in Kelvin versus pressure. But we measured temperature. And let me back that off. Just call it temp. In degrees C. And we are really looking to have as our X variable, we really want to have temperature in Kelvin, and then we want to have pressure, and that's still in millimeters of mercury. Here, I'm going to go ahead and put the temperatures, and grab this person's data. And I'm just going to paste the numbers. All right, so this is their temperatures, and these are their pressures. Once again, you can go ahead and do the calculations and plug it in, and just type it in, or you can have the spreadsheet do it for you. So here I would just have equals. I want this value plus 273.15, enter. There's the answer. Find that plus, bring it down, and now it's exactly the same thing that you've done before. I'm going to just highlight that, insert, chart, scatter. Oh my goodness, look at that. That doesn't look good. I want axis titles. I want a trend line. And so for the trend line, I want linear. I want to see the equation. I'm going to move it. And once again, to rescale, this is just way, way, way out of whack for what we need. Let me just shrink this a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll just click on the axis, and then I want to format. Come on. Axis options. I didn't let me do that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look and see, well, where is my lowest number? It's just above 273. So maybe I'll go, I don't know. We'll try 260. And well, that's not bad. Maybe I'll do 70. Not bad, but now look at everything is between the 600 and 1000. So same thing. All I did is double click on the axis, make sure axis options, and then I don't know how many times we're going to push axis options. All right, so my lowest pressure is 699. Maybe we'll go 600. There we go. So at this point in time, you already know how to put in the titles. Let me show you how to get this so it is all on one page when you print to a PDF. First thing you want to do is highlight the entire region where your data is, where your data and your tables are, your charts are, graphs. And then under page layout, print area, set your print area. Okay, now to print to a PDF, you can do a save as PDF, but I personally do print Adobe PDF. And if you see, the sides of all of these graphs got truncated. Under the print menu, go to scaling. So no scaling. If you click, I want to fit my sheet on one page. There I go. So that's my entire page with the 3 charts, all of your data. And now if you click print, you're going to get a pop-up, and it's basically, how would you like to save this?